Officer Ryan Mitchell's Bodycam captured the scene at 5:47 p.m. on March 14, 2024. A silver Lexus SUV in a residential driveway in Riverside, California. The front end was destroyed, the windshield cracked, a bicycle crumpled on the pavement, and a teenage girl lying motionless 20 feet up the driveway. The man sitting on the curb was David Martinez, 54 years old, a civil engineer. He'd been driving the Lexus, his driveway, his home. Officer Mitchell approached the girl first. She wasn't breathing. He began CPR immediately. Her backpack was still strapped to her shoulders. Her phone had fallen from her hand. The screen showed a text message thread with someone named Dad. The last message, sent at 5:43 p.m. Almost home. An ambulance arrived within 6 minutes. Paramedics took over. They worked for 12 minutes on the driveway. Then they loaded her onto a stretcher and rushed her to Riverside Community Hospital. Officer Mitchell stayed at the scene. He needed to understand what had happened. The girl was Emma Martinez, 14 years old, a freshman at Martin Luther King High School. She'd been riding her bicycle home from volleyball practice. This was her routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she'd ride the 2 miles from school to her house on Sycamore Drive. Her father knew the route. He drove it himself sometimes to check on her. David Martinez remained on the curb. He was unresponsive to questions. An officer stayed with him while Mitchell documented the scene. The bike's rear wheel was folded completely in half. Pieces of plastic from the SUV's bumper were scattered across the driveway. There were no skid marks on the street, no evidence the vehicle had braked before entering the driveway. Emma was pronounced dead at Riverside Community Hospital at 6:34 p.m. Massive head trauma, internal injuries. She never regained consciousness. David Martinez left his office in downtown Riverside at 5:30 p.m. that afternoon. He worked for the county as a senior civil engineer. Traffic projects, road design, infrastructure planning. He'd been at the job for 22 years. He was good at it, methodical, detail-oriented, the kind of person who checked things twice. He'd had a normal day. Meetings in the morning, lunch at his desk, a conference call at 3 p.m. about a freeway expansion project. Nothing unusual, nothing stressful. At 5:15, he packed his briefcase, grabbed his keys, walked to his car in the parking structure. His route home was always the same, the 91 freeway west to the 215 south. Exit at Alessandro Boulevard, left on Sycamore. His house was the fourth one on the right. The whole drive took 23 minutes on a good day, 30 if traffic was heavy. That afternoon, traffic was light. He made good time. He merged onto the 215, changed lanes, accelerated, and then he looked down at his phone. A text message had come in, from his wife, Karen. She was asking about dinner. He glanced at the screen, started typing a response. His eyes were on the phone for maybe 10 seconds. When he looked up, he was still on the freeway, still moving. He sent the message, put the phone down. He took the Alessandro exit at 5:43 p.m., turned left onto Sycamore. His house was visible ahead. The driveway was empty. Karen's car wasn't home yet. Emma should be arriving soon. She always texted when she was close. David pulled into his driveway at 5:46 p.m. He was still looking at his phone, still reading Karen's response about dinner. The Lexus was moving at approximately 15 miles per hour. He didn't see the bicycle ahead of him. He didn't see his daughter. Emma had arrived 30 seconds earlier. She dismounted at the end of the driveway. She was walking the bike up the slope toward the garage. She had her earbuds in. She didn't hear the vehicle behind her. The SUV struck her from behind. The impact threw her forward 20 feet. Her helmet cracked against the concrete. The bicycle was crushed beneath the front bumper. David felt the collision, felt the vehicle lurch. He slammed on the brakes. The Lexus stopped halfway up the driveway. He got out, saw the bicycle, saw the crumpled front end, and then he looked ahead, saw the girl lying on the pavement, saw the pink helmet, the dark hair, the backpack. He ran to her, dropped to his knees, turned her over, and saw his daughter's face. He called 911 at 5:47 p.m. The call lasted 42 seconds. His voice was barely coherent. He kept saying, "My daughter," and "I didn't see her," and "Please help." The dispatcher sent an ambulance and police. David sat on the curb and waited. Officer Mitchell arrived 3 minutes later. David couldn't speak, couldn't explain. He just pointed at the driveway, at Emma, at what he'd done. Officer Mitchell secured the scene immediately. He photographed the SUV from multiple angles. The damage was consistent with a low-speed collision. The windshield crack radiated from a central impact point on the passenger side. The hood was bent upward. The front bumper had detached on the left side. He documented the bicycle. The frame was bent at a 90-degree angle. Both wheels were destroyed. The pink helmet had split down the middle. Blood was pooled on the driveway where Emma had landed. Mitchell found David's phone on the front seat of the Lexus. The screen was still on. A text message thread with someone named Karen was open. The last message had been sent at 5:46 p.m. The timestamp matched the approximate time of the collision. A second officer arrived and interviewed David at the scene. He was cooperative. He admitted he'd been looking at his phone. He said he'd been texting his wife about dinner. He hadn't seen Emma in the driveway, hadn't known she was there until after the impact. Investigators pulled David's phone records. The text to Karen had been sent at 5:46:17 p.m. Witnesses from neighboring houses reported hearing the collision at approximately 5:46 p.m. The timeline was consistent. David had been typing or reading a message when he struck his daughter. A collision reconstruction specialist examined the scene the following day. Based on the damage to the vehicle and the distance Emma had been thrown, the Lexus had been traveling between 12 and 18 miles per hour at impact. There were no skid marks. No evidence David had attempted to brake before the collision. The specialist concluded that David had not seen Emma until after he hit her. Investigators reviewed surveillance footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera. The camera faced Sycamore Drive and captured part of David's driveway. The footage showed Emma arriving on her bicycle at 5:45:47 p.m. She dismounted at the end of the driveway and began walking the bike toward the garage. At 5:46:03 p.m., David's Lexus entered the frame. The vehicle was moving at a steady pace. It did not slow. It struck Emma from behind. She disappeared from the camera's view. The Lexus stopped abruptly, halfway up the driveway. The footage was clear. David had not been paying attention. His eyes had been on his phone, not the road ahead. Emma never had a chance to move, never saw the vehicle coming. Detectives interviewed Karen Martinez that evening at the hospital. She confirmed that David had been texting her about dinner. She said he often texted while driving. She told him not to, but he did it anyway. She didn't blame him. She was devastated. Their daughter was dead. The investigation was straightforward. No mystery, no unknown variables. David Martinez had been distracted by his phone. He'd driven into his own driveway without looking ahead. He'd killed his daughter. The Riverside Police Department forwarded the case to the district attorney's office within 72 hours. The evidence was overwhelming. David's own statements, the phone records, the surveillance footage, the collision reconstruction. Everything pointed to vehicular manslaughter caused by distracted driving. David Martinez was not arrested at the scene. Officers allowed him to go to the hospital with Karen. He sat in the emergency room waiting area while doctors worked on Emma. When they came out and told him she was dead, he collapsed. Hospital staff called a psychiatrist. David was placed on a suicide watch. For 3 days, investigators deliberated on how to proceed. The case was legally clear. David had committed vehicular manslaughter, but the circumstances were extraordinary. He'd killed his own daughter in his own driveway while coming home from work. The psychological devastation was beyond measure. The district attorney's office reviewed the evidence. They considered the factors. David had no prior criminal record, no history of reckless driving, no DUIs, no traffic violations beyond a speeding ticket in 2018. He was a respected county employee, a father, a husband, a man who'd made a single catastrophic mistake. But Emma was dead, and California law was clear. Vehicular manslaughter, resulting from distracted driving, was a criminal offense. The fact that the victim was his daughter didn't change the law. It only changed the tragedy. On March 18, 2024, 4 days after Emma's death, detectives met with David and his attorney at the Riverside Police Department. They informed him that the DA's office intended to file charges. Vehicular manslaughter, a felony. He could face up to 6 years in state prison. David didn't protest, didn't ask for leniency. He told detectives he understood. He said he deserved whatever happened. He said he couldn't live with what he'd done. His attorney negotiated with the DA's office for 2 weeks. They discussed plea options. The defense didn't contest the facts. David was guilty. The question was what justice looked like when the perpetrator had already lost everything. On April 2, 2024, David Martinez appeared in Riverside County Superior Court. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of vehicular manslaughter. The prosecution recommended a sentence of 4 years in state prison, with credit for time served and good behavior. The defense asked for probation and community service, arguing that incarceration served no purpose when David's guilt and remorse were absolute. The judge listened to both sides. She read victim impact statements from Karen and from Emma's younger brother, who was 12 years old. She reviewed the evidence, the phone records, the surveillance footage, the collision reconstruction. She sentenced David Martinez to 3 years in state prison. She noted that no sentence could address the magnitude of his loss. No punishment could match what he'd already endured. But the law required accountability. Distracted driving had killed a child. The fact that the child was his daughter made the tragedy more profound, not less criminal. David was taken into custody that day. He didn't speak, didn't react. Karen sat in the gallery and watched him leave. David Martinez was processed at the Riverside County Jail on April 2, 2024. He was fingerprinted, photographed, and assigned an inmate number. He waived his right to a bail hearing. He didn't want to be released. He told his attorney he couldn't go home, couldn't see the driveway, couldn't live in the house where his daughter had died. He was transferred to the California Department of Corrections on April 15th. He was classified as a low-risk inmate. No history of violence, no gang affiliations, no disciplinary issues. He was assigned to a minimum security facility in Chino, California. His cellmate later told prison staff that David spent most of his time lying on his bunk. He didn't socialize, didn't go to the yard, didn't participate in programs. He was polite when spoken to, but he didn't initiate conversation. He kept a photograph of Emma taped to the wall beside his bed. She was smiling. Karen visited once a month. She never missed a visit. She told David she forgave him. She told him it was an accident. She told him Emma would want him to survive this. David listened. He nodded. He didn't believe her. Prison psychologists placed him on suicide watch twice during his first year. Once after he stopped eating for 6 days. Once after another inmate found him standing on a chair with a bedsheet tied around his neck. He was moved to a mental health unit both times. He was given medication, counseling, supervision. He complied with treatment. He didn't try again. His attorney filed for early release after 18 months. David had been a model inmate. No infractions, no violations. He'd participated in therapy. He'd completed vocational training courses. He qualified for good behavior credits. The parole board reviewed his case in October 2025. They considered his record, his remorse, his cooperation. They also considered the nature of his crime. He'd killed a child, his own daughter, while distracted by his phone. The facts were undisputed. The board granted parole. David Martinez was released on November 3, 2025. He'd served 19 months of his 3-year sentence. David Martinez left Chino State Prison on a gray November morning. Karen was waiting in the parking lot. She drove him to a small apartment in Moreno Valley. Not their house. She'd sold the house on Sycamore Drive 6 months earlier. She couldn't live there anymore. Couldn't see the driveway. Couldn't walk past Emma's bedroom. David's life after prison was quiet. He didn't return to his job with the county. He couldn't. He took a position as a part-time consultant for a private engineering firm. He worked from home. He avoided driving whenever possible. When he did drive, he put his phone in the glove compartment, locked it, didn't touch it until he arrived. Karen and David separated in March 2026, 2 years after Emma's death. The marriage couldn't survive the weight of what had happened. Karen didn't blame David. She told him that repeatedly, but every time she looked at him, she saw Emma lying on the driveway. She couldn't move past it. Neither could he. Their younger son Marcus stayed with Karen. He saw David every other weekend. The visits were difficult. Marcus loved his father, but he also remembered his sister. He remembered coming home from a friend's house that day and seeing the police cars, seeing the ambulance, seeing his father on the curb. In April 2026, Karen Martinez established the Emma Martinez Memorial Foundation. The organization advocates for stricter distracted driving laws in California. They push for legislation banning all handheld phone use while driving, even at stoplights or in parking lots. They visit high schools to speak about the consequences of texting while driving. Karen shows Emma's photograph, tells her story, shows the surveillance footage of the driveway. David doesn't participate in the foundation's work. He can't. He supports it financially. He sends checks every month. But he can't speak publicly about what happened. Can't relive it. Can't face the cameras. California's distracted driving laws have not changed since Emma's death. Handheld phone use while driving is illegal, but enforcement is inconsistent. Penalties remain relatively minor. Most violations result in fines between $20 and $50. Repeat offenders rarely face license suspension. David Martinez lives alone now. He works remotely. He doesn't date, doesn't socialize. His coworkers don't know about Emma. They don't know what happened on Sycamore Drive. Every March 14th, he drives to Riverside. He parks on the street near his old house. He walks up Sycamore Drive. He stands at the end of the driveway. He looks at the spot where Emma died. And then he leaves. Emma Martinez would be 17 now. She'd be a senior in high school, applying to colleges, planning her future. She wanted to study marine biology. She wanted to see the world. David Martinez looked at his phone for 10 seconds. Emma never made it home.